Hello, Booktopia, and welcome to a very special event where we're having a chat with the founder of Tiddas for Tiddas, a amazing social media initiative that brings the stories of First Nations women to the broader public, Marlee Silva.
Hi.
Welcome to our Facebook page, Marlee. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. It's nice to connect with people in this new way, this new post-COVID way. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. And we're here to discuss specifically your new book, My Tidda, My Sister, which people can see there and can order right now at booktopia.com.au. But before we get into that, we've been asking all of the authors we're interviewing this year, what has 2020 been like for you?
Oh, it's a roller coaster, right? Yeah, I think when it first hit, I had this massive panic of, all my work is going to be gone and everything's going to be, a complete disaster. And then it was okay. And then, so it's just been up and down. And now, it was my birthday the other day. And I remember when it was March, I was saying, I think things will be back to normal by my birthday, and hitting that milestone and realizing that it's absolutely not even close back to normal. I was like, this is a little bit depressing. But it definitely, I definitely can't complain because so much of what I do has, already existed online, but even more has transitioned into being able to operate like we're doing right now. So, it's pretty wild. And I'm kind of got all my appendages crossed because it's been quite a warm day today in Sydney, and thinking about getting closer to summer. I'm just begging for a bit more normality and not having to be worried about going to crowded beaches and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So tell us a little bit about My Tidda, My Sister.
Yeah, so it's something I'm so proud of and so honoured to have been able to write and have lots of conversations with a whole bunch of different Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women. It's essentially a combination of my own anecdotes and personal experiences growing up as a Gamilaroi and Dunghutti girl, intertwined with the experiences of these women that I've interviewed, and the stories of my own grandmothers. And everyone who I spoke to was so open and really giving in what they shared with me. They all had this real passion to share about their own experiences and their own lessons they've learned in their lives. And these are women ranging from 15 years old to 86 was the oldest that I spoke to. And so it's such a diverse range in there, and they all just wanted to be able to share so they could connect with other people and, offer advice through their own experience. And just that generosity and the kindness and desire to really focus on the positive and kind of exemplify the capabilities that we have as not just Indigenous women, but women more generally, was really inspiring. And so essentially that's what it is. It's a celebration in a lot of ways. I think that, after I finished writing and doing the last round of edits and everything, I didn't want to even look at it again for a while, which I think a lot of writers get to that stage. And being able to have a bit more distance and now pick it back up and talk to people about the book, that's the thing that comes out the most, I think, is this celebration of strength and resilience and of culture as well.
Yeah, I love that you describe it as a celebration. That's a really lovely way to put it. The book starts with a story from your high school days, where your dad came to pick you up, and it caused a student to ask a question of you that had a big impact on you. Could you explain a little bit about what that question was and what it meant for you at the time that it was asked?
Yeah, so following my dad picking me up from school one day, I had a student ask me almost immediately the next day at school, why is your dad black? And never in my life, and I think it's very much a product of the household that I grew up in, where I have one non-Indigenous parent, one Aboriginal parent, and a whole kind of a quite diverse kind of culture and ethnicity in my extended family as well, that at that point, at 12 years old, never heard anyone be referred to as a colour. We as Aboriginal people call ourselves blackfellas, but I didn't really put that in a place where we were talking about blackness as a colour at that time. And it was so impacting to me because it was had a lot more weight than just talking about his skin color, because what was followed up by that is a whole bunch of questions that I realize now are a lot of the stereotypes that are held still against Aboriginal people, and seemingly innocent things, can he play the didgeridoo, those sorts of questions, which made a lot more sense. But then it was other ones that kind of came on a bit later down the track of is you get to go to university for free, or you get a free house, a free car, all this kind of stuff, and a whole bunch of other things that were pretty nasty. And essentially what it did is, so that was about 4 weeks into year 7 in 2008, and it very much put me as the other with my peers. And essentially everything that I did from that point, and it was a really conscious decision because I'd always been incredibly proud of being Aboriginal, but what that meant to the people around me had suddenly changed. So I had to basically, take on a position, in my school environment where if I was going to be the only Aboriginal person my peers knew, which was the case for the most part, I was going to show them that being Aboriginal is an amazing thing and it means success, and it's not the stereotypes they think it is.
Can you tell us about the journey that you've been on over the past couple of years and the work you've been doing in building a community around these stories of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women?
Yeah, it's like I said, it was my birthday the other day. I turned 25, and I think it feels like the quarter century is a bit of a milestone birthday, and reflecting on a lot of stuff that's kind of happened. And I sort of was listing all these things that I've achieved or been lucky enough to be a part of, and most of them have happened in the last 5 years. And it's pretty insane, and so much more than I ever thought that I'd do, including writing a book. And I think that, for a lot of people, because of the profile of Tiddas for Tiddas, and subsequently myself as an individual, has seen the last 18 months, it looks like I just kind of came out of nowhere. But I have, essentially been doing this for a decade in a whole different range of ways. And it started with me finding my own voice as a teenager, and being given opportunities to go on leadership camps and represent essentially my school and, a bigger group kind of within my state at different things, and sharing stories at that point. And then as soon as I left school and went to university, I worked in the nonprofit sector for an Aboriginal education charity, working with next generation, having at school. I found myself just so passionate and excited by the stories that these young kids were sharing with me. And at the time, they were only a few years younger than me, and I saw myself so much in them that it excited me and really just cemented within me that no matter what I did with my life, I'd always be looking to work with my people, and particularly share those stories that impacted me so much, and I knew would have an impact on so many others. So, after that role, I worked as a communications consultant for another Aboriginal agency, which again, it just put me in rooms with really incredible people who had these, again, stories to share that were, I guess they kind of were very instrumental in leading me to a place where I decided that I wanted to, provide a place online on social media that could do what I was experiencing every day, but for people who weren't in those rooms, which is, hearing an amazing story, feeling really pumped up about it, and it's kind of making my day. That was the humble beginnings. We were really inspired by the 2018 NAIDOC theme. And I say we, me and my younger sister, which was Because of Her We Can, which really saw our women at the front. And obviously as a woman, I have a bias around those stories inspiring me the most. And also being raised with the stories of my grandmothers and my aunties, they were the most influential on me, as a child. So that's where that came from. And we just decided to start an Instagram page and share different stories every single day to bring a smile on people's faces. And it got a lot bigger than what we ever intended and resulted in a podcast. And, it's been so wild. And essentially it resulted in the book as well. So it's something that we're really proud of doing. And I mean, people will realize after watching this that at the moment the page is offline. We're in the process of essentially doing some reflecting and trying to build ourselves into a proper operating organization. It just became apparent recently that we are perceived as an organization, and at the moment we've been treating it very much like a side hobby is what it started as, 2 years ago, just me waking up every day and looking and reposting something or writing something. And now we need to operate like an organization because we're so big and there's so much that's attached to it. So that's exciting. We will be back. There's a lot of people who are worried that we're gone forever. But yeah, we need to take some time out and also look after ourselves because this year is really hectic, as we all know. And we want to make sure that what we do provide and, who we really are is very clear and operates the best way it can.
That's great. And just hearing like all of the things that you've done in, such a short space of time, let's face it. I mean, I don't want to get into how old I am, but like I still don't know what I'm doing, and like you're very together. So I wanted to ask, at what point in that journey did you decide book is what I want to kind of do now and something I want to create and put out there in the world?
Honestly, book has been the pinnacle goal since I was about 15. Very much through the whole process of sort of finishing the book and, knowing when the release date was. My mum and I have had this conversation so many times because she's like, I just remember so distinctly you being around that age and being like, I just want to write a book. And I don't care if I'm, 60 and I'm self-publishing, but at some point before I leave this earth, there will be a book with my name on the cover. And I thought that I'd kind of got that in 2017 when I had a short story published in Anita Heiss's anthology, Growing Up Aboriginal Australia. And at the time I was like, oh my God, I did it. Like, it's not my name on the front cover, but I'm in it. And it's, mine and my dad's story. And that to me, I was like, that's amazing. And I probably will still just be doing that at 60 self-published thing. And then, we accidentally started this really large movement on social media. And the next thing I know, I'm getting a DM from someone from Hardy Grant books, and they're asking me if I'd ever thought about writing a book. And I was like I've said, I've been thinking about it for a very long time. So it seems, I think that I'm conscious of the fact that I do myself a disservice when I say like, oh, it just kind of happened and, I'm really lucky and whatever. But it's definitely something in terms of my craft, I've worked on for a really long time. And, I was at university for 5 years and did my honours in creative writing. And I've definitely been training for it for a long time. But I didn't think that, it's so different when you kind of go from years of just writing a story when you feel like it, or working on things for uni and kind of whatever, to actually like, this is going to be a book. This is going to really be something that people can pick up and hold. So it's not something I just kind of decided this is what I'm going to do now, but rather the universe sort of decided for me.
Yeah. And I just do want to address, I'm sure that people from Hardy Grant are going to be watching this. And I just want to say, is that your strategy for publishing, sliding into people's DMs?
It works.
And the second thing I wanted to ask was, you said you wanted to write a book from the age of 15. When you were 15 and envisioning the book that you wanted to write, is this close to what you were thinking, or was it something else?
It was, I think at the time, I've kind of always been really obsessed with my dad's story and his mum and her mum. So the first story is about Violet Pearl French, who's my great-grandmother, and her daughter Alice, who's my nan, and sort of comes down the generational lines. And their stories, because they were at the forefront of my upbringing and really were instrumental in me understanding what it means to be an Aboriginal person, what it means to even just be a good person, because, there's sort of this real tradition of charity in our family, and as a kid you can't really articulate that, but just knowing how generous they were, and my great-grandmother has a park named after her in Moree because of what she gave to the community, and she was just seen as this quite like a real life angel, and I knew that those were the stories that meant the most to me, and I think that in some ways they were the ones that I felt like I had to tell. And I think that was kind of the point that I was at in terms of what it might look like. And at the time I was still playing around with, like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure I wrote some horrendous stories about vampires at the time. Like, let's be honest, it was the Twilight era. So
horrendous stories about vampires sell very well.
Yes, this is true.
So what was the experience like of writing the book and collecting all these stories?
Yeah, it feels like it went so quickly. And I think, at the time I was still working full-time as a consultant. And then at one point, I luckily had really amazing bosses who were so excited for me to even be writing the book that they were like, okay, like, we need to help you get more space to do this, because I was sort of in my lunch break. A couple of times I actually got to meet up with some of the women who are in the book in my lunch break to kind of interview them and write things and whatever. So I started taking off every Friday to work through things, and it was a whole bunch of phone calls. Some were just, back and forth via email, and a couple I got to do face-to-face, which were obviously the best kinds of ones. And that was very much the beginning of it, was just like collecting. And then the back half, some of them, they were just so impactful for me that I found myself kind of getting home from that interview, and it's kind of, I've written basically a full thing in about an hour because it just impacted me so much. And other ones, it was just, grappling with things as you do with any kind of story. And yeah, that whole process was so fun and interesting. And in the book, there's a few different pages that are sort of just, some's got my poetry in it, or little quotes or things. There's one that's probably my favorite double page spread, which is about Aboriginality and skin color, and that because my dad's always told me that a cup of coffee is still a cup of coffee, even no matter how much milk is added around skin color. And I had all these like doodles on little bits of paper that I just sort of come to me, whether it was on the train to work or whatever. And actually the wall that's behind this laptop right now is where I'd like blue tacked them all, and there was lots of notes and kind of paintings and things that I sort of printed out and put up to just, before I probably, the final month before the edits were all due and whatever, was when it really just, there was a second there where I was a bit panicked that it wasn't going to come together, and it was sort of all in these fragments. And then I quit my full-time jobs, and then I was able to pull it together. So I was like, it's, and now and nothing's going to happen,
So I think something that stands out here is the diversity of the women that you connected with as part of this. Could you comment a little on whether that was what you expected to find when you began this project?
Yes, I did expect it to be quite a diverse. I've never, there's this kind of, this beautiful paradox of being an Indigenous Australian, whether that's Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander. Everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different experience. But the thing of beauty in it, no matter how different our experiences are, there's some point of connection and some, we talk about being one mob and being connected in that way. And there's the thing that, is almost universal from my experience with every Aboriginal person I know or have met, is this generosity and desire to give back to community and to do something for us as a people. We think we are very community-minded people. There's no individualism in our culture, which is a unique thing and an incredible thing about it, because we do something for the people around us. We don't do it for ourselves. And that's the kind of underlying thing that connects all the women in the book. In particular, they wanted to give themselves for other people. And but yeah, the diversity of experiences is what I had expected, because that's my experience in life, but it's also what I hoped for, because I think there is still this misconception across Australia that there's kind of one way to be an Aboriginal person, one Aboriginal life. I think we even as Aboriginal people fall into that misconception sometimes, that you have to do this, that and the other to fit into this box, but it's just not the case. And that's a beautiful thing. And our differences, and again, this is in general as human beings, they're the most interesting and exciting things that, for me personally, I think is what brings us together. So and it's such a I'm so proud of it, and I'm glad to have been able to kind of present as much as I have, but it's still such a small sample size of who we are as a people. And this, you could write 20 editions of this and still not capture it all. So it's there. All of them gave me something really interesting and exciting to think about as well.
Do you think that there are more editions of this in the future for you?
I don't know. We just got through this one. I might need a little while to think about
that. Are there any stories from the book that hold a particular place in your heart?
Yeah, I think because it had such a visceral kind of reaction from me when I had an interview with Jolla Cummings. And she's someone I've gotten to know even better, after the interview, and kind of we have a friendship now. And she's just such a stoic and amazing woman who grew up in the out-of-home care system and faced some really horrific stuff, and was essentially disconnected from her culture because of the circumstances she grew up in. But she's come out the other side, and the story of her reconnecting to her family and being given a skin name from her people, and she's been so successful with essentially no help and no support, and now she's this amazing teacher, a high school teacher, and what she's done, and the stories of how an amazing teacher at her school helped her get through it as well. It's just so powerful, and it's something I think about a lot. And I think there's quite a few stories within the book that touch on broader issues that our people face, and obviously Jolla's is about the out-of-home care system, and I think it emphasises something that we all need to be more aware of. And the fact is that we talk a lot about the stolen generation, but there's more kids living away from their families now than at the peak of the stolen generation. So that's where I think it's, in that way, not only does that story kind of play in the back of my mind a lot of the time, but it is a good entry point for some people who don't have opportunities to connect with these facts or know much about them, so they can read that sort of stuff and be more aware, and then hopefully go out and learn more and want to help make a change. So that one was particularly special to me.
Can you tell us a little bit about what some of the challenges are in writing a book like this, and maybe some of the highlights as well?
I think some of the challenges, I think it probably, for me, is just the sort of internal fear that I'm not doing these women justice. That was the biggest fear for me, is, sort of really feeling like, how do I make sure that this is, feels the same way reading it as it did hearing it? And that was something I was quite self-conscious of, and felt really anxious about, but I hope that I've done that for these women, and quite a few of them said back to me they were really happy with the end result, which is good. That was definitely the challenge, because you feel this responsibility of, you're telling someone else's story, but I also kind of overcame that with balancing it, or kind of evening it out with my own experiences weaved in there. So it just helped me kind of feel like I did have a bit more right to be saying what I was saying, is talking about my own experiences as well. And the highlight is kind of in the same vein, just kind of, I guess, having the trust of these women to do so, and just being able to do it and essentially expand on what I had been doing on an Instagram page for 2 years, much deeper, and hopefully reach a lot more people. And already sort of the feedback from the kind of high school girl age group is what means a lot to me, because I think a lot of the time when I write, I feel like I am writing to my 15-year-old self, and it's just about showing all girls, whether they're Aboriginal or not, that they're not alone, and there's so many different pathways to things, and you can overcome those challenges because we all face them.
Yeah. What do you hope that Australia as a nation could take from these stories?
I think it goes back to diminishing those stereotypes you have around Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women. also being inspired and being excited by our women, and kind of seeing that, the pathway to a positive future. I'm very biased, but that a better Australia lies in the hands of our women. And I think, especially in the third part, which is You the Future in the book, which is a bunch of younger girls who told me their stories. And one of them in particular made a point of saying that she was coming for Scott Morrison's job, and she's going to be, a prime minister and all this sort of stuff. And there's this confidence that came through across the board with those young girls, and fire and just kind of spunk that is so exciting to me, that I hope it excites a lot of other people too. Because, from what I've seen of the next generation, we see it in the school strike for climate stuff. They're just ready to go. So if that's the thing that I hope a lot of people take from that, and get behind them and support them.
Yeah, you're right. They're a very inspirational group of people.
Yeah.
What do you think we can do as Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians to meet the challenges of talking about things like identity?
Oh, that's a big question. I think if we go sort of that broader picture, Australia as a whole kind of perspective, we've never been able to answer the question of what our identity is, what our true identity is, in a way that isn't exclusive. In the past, it was so heavily reliant on a particular kind of person. The first instances of an Australian identity came with the Anzac spirit, and that's such a small part of our history. And I think we also need to remember that our history is 60,000 years old because of the fact that my people have been here for so long and have achieved so much. And I think it's such a complex thing, and it's going to take a really long time, but we need to be able to answer that as a whole. And that does come back down to the day-to-day responsibilities of the individual, regardless of your background. I think that we need to do a lot better at listening. I think that the trauma of this year, start coming into 2020 with the country on fire, and then all of us going through this pandemic together, and seeing the surge of the Black Lives Matter movement in Australia in the way that we did in the middle of it all, it feels like it's an opportunity for us to really have these tough conversations and to really, I guess, reflect on who we have been prior to 2020, and how we can do better for the future. I was so disheartened to see the contrast of us sort of coming together and wanting to help each other and lift each other up in the fires, and then fighting each other for toilet paper rolls a couple months later. I am a realist, but I'm mostly an optimist, and I think that there is a stronger surge now more than ever for us to want to be together and to want to feel connected, and to, I don't know, just feel strengthened by each other's support, and actually feel love and kindness. And I think we're all a bit exhausted at the moment, and I just hope that that we can come out of this stronger because of figuring out who the new Australia is post-pandemic. I think that every country on earth is going to be going, who's the post COVID New Zealand or America or whatever. So I think it's a good opportunity. I don't know the answers, but I think that this could be the moment if we all go into it open-minded and really focus on listening to learn, not to respond.
That's a really good take, I think. Where do you see yourself going next?
On a nice long holiday. No, I don't know. It's so crazy because, like I was saying before, I've done so much in the last 5 years that I never thought I'd do. And none of it was planned. And I've always just trusted my gut and kind of just gone for things or put my hand up to do something just to give it a go. And it hasn't failed me yet. So I'm going to keep running with that sort of attitude and just kind of see where the universe takes me a little bit. It's interesting. The other day, I found myself kind of being like, I could write my next book. Like I could, like I feel like I could start, and I did love doing it. It's torturous, and you get to a point where you really hate what you've done, but you come back and you love it at the end. Yeah. So, maybe that's next. I don't know.
You could do the vampire novel.
I could do the vampire novel. I could do Aboriginal vampires. Like, that would be cool. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a market for that. I know so many people who read that.
Who knows? I don't know. I think, again, being as reflective as I have in the last couple of weeks, I think that, like you said, I'm really young, and I probably have done so much that I haven't had as much fun as I've needed to. So might just, go post-pandemic, we can go out and have a bit more fun and maybe just regress to my uni days and, bludge around a little bit. But that's impossible. I've never been able to do that. So I'm just hopeful.
You should probably check your phone and see if you've got a DM from Hardy Grant now. Asking. All right. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but just one last question for you. If you could give one piece of advice to young Indigenous women who may be going through similar high school experiences to what you went through, what would it be?
It would be that the space that you're in right now feels like the be-all and end-all, that this is the only world that exists, and everything feels so much bigger than what it is. And it's easy for me to sit here and say there is, another side of this, and there is going to be a time where you can, not feel so outcasted or alone or different in this space. But it is tough, and it's okay to feel frustrated with it, but channel it into the things that you're passionate about. Use it as energy to work really hard on whatever it is that you love. And if you do that, you'll be out in the real world in no time. And also remember, you aren't alone in this. You're a product of 60,000 years of resilience and strength. And that's something that is unique to us. And it's so special and exciting. And it means that you can do anything in the world. The world is your oyster. And even though you don't get to meet and talk to every single Aboriginal person, you make each and every one of us proud. And that's, all those who have been and all those who will be. We're all connected, and your success is our success. So you're certainly never alone, and you can take on the world.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Marlee. We really appreciate you being here and giving us your time and answering our questions. My Tidda, My Sister is an amazing book. Congratulations on it. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, it's inspiring, and you can buy it right now at booktopia.com.au.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Marlee. Bye.
Bye.